back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the audio story Pest Control, written by Peter Anglesey and is read by David Tennant. This is actually produced by BBC Books. BBC Audio as well. This isn't a Big Finish audio drama. This was a BBC production. Actually still to this day, the BBC had released the new series novels. Usually they come in threes and stuff. However, for a small period of time, they started releasing audio exclusive audio books in which they have somebody reading out the narrative. And usually they would get a cast member of Doctor Who. Sometimes the choices they get for roles were strange. Not a lot of them. They did do a lot of audiobooks for already existing novels, but this is one of the few occasions where it's an audio exclusive. And I remember thinking some of these decisions on picking some of these actors to read some of the books are kind of strange. They had the guy who played Toby in Impossible Planet and Satan Pit read one of the books in the Martha era, autumn, something like All Hallows Eve or something like that, which was really strange. But this one is actually read by David Tennant, who of course plays the 10th Doctor. I can't remember if Catherine Tate did one. David Tennant, I think he did 3 or 4 exclusive ones, and he's also read a handful of the actual novels, specifically to do with ones featuring Rose. But I believe this is the first one, which was an audio exclusive audiobook. And so it has a vastly different format to what we're used to with Big Finish. It's not a cast of actors working against each other. It's one person reading a book, and it's up to them elevating personalities. And I just want to state as well, because there was something I was worried about getting this, was that this story does include sound effects and a score. So when David Tennant's like talking about how something's transforming, they have this sound effects behind them and there's a score. So it feels like a genuine production rather than just David Tennant reading, which is something I'm really grateful for, because I was kind of worrying of getting it. And you're probably wondering, Edam, if you think we're worried about this, why did you get this? Why did you pick up this and instead not pick up one of his audio dramas? Well, you see, despite this being for this marathon, the first time I've ever listened to this, I've actually owned this for a while. I actually owned this prior to the announcement that David Tennant was going to return for Big Finish. So when I bought this, when I found this in an Oxfam shop, this was the closest thing that you could get to David Tennant in a Big Finish audio drama, in an audio production, even if it's in a vastly different format. And that is very interesting. I like the an exclusive audio adventure here, basically announcing that this isn't based on a book. I also need to stress that this is 2.5 hours long, separated into 2 discs. I think that's for what the story kind of does. That does kind of feel a bit too much. I think you could have easily cut that down, but that's more personal taste, and I'll get into a bit of it in a later. But for the most part, it's a pretty standard production in terms of an audiobook. But we got some sound effects, we got some scores, so I was really looking forward to that. I was really looking forward to this adventure, and just to hear an original audio story with David Tennant was something that I was excited about. I'm like anyone else is a huge fan of the 10th Doctor. He might be my least favourite Doctor, but that doesn't mean I do not appreciate his incarnation and just can't enjoy the hell out of him. I mean, David Tennant is easily one of the most accessible Doctors in the entire franchise. And again, so before I get into the actual narrative itself and stuff, I just want to point out that this story is a sci-fi futuristic heavy story, so we have a lot of concepts and ideas with very alien sounding names, which for those of you who have been watching this vlog series knows that I am terrible with names. So I will be referring to characters and species in a much more simplified form, because the story features mainly 2 alien races, but they resemble other things. So I'll just call them in their more simpler names. And that being said, whether this story is a popular one, I'm not quite sure. This one kind of goes under the radar. Not a lot of people talk about it. It does seem to be a quite forgotten story in the Doctor Who canon. But whether it deserves it or not, whether there's a secret hidden gem here, we're gonna find out today. Now, this is the official BBC book, BBC audio cover. And as you can tell on the spine, it's vastly different. You've got the BBC audio logo there. It's not focusing. Oh, that's because it's upside down. There you go. And like always, I've printed out my own DVD cover. So this is what it looks like on the shelf. As you can see, I tried to make it look... I actually put this all together, but I couldn't find a good quality of this image without the Doctor Who logo and the text, because it was kind of distracting. So I kind of like remade it. Can you see? Like, I used very similar images of the Doctor and Donna and everything in the background, but it's not... You could see I was trying to resemble it, but it didn't come out so accurate. But I think I did a decent job of recreating that. So there's my cover. I'd like the image of David Tennant here a lot more. I feel like that one is kind of overused. But this one with David Tennant a bit more serious, I think that works specifically well. And I like how I got his head to poke out there, which makes the cover a little bit more dynamic. So here's the spine, if anyone's interested. Pest control, very nice. And here's the back, which gives away that it is one of mine. So I'm not very good at focusing on the back. My backs are usually generic, and you can see that I use the picture of the cover for the back picture there. So anyway, that's the cover. So let's get on to the story at hand. The Doctor and Donna arrive on what seems to be a battlefield, and the Doctor and Donna start exploring, and they have these small interactions and stuff. And right off the bat, the dialogue here is just not interesting. There seems to be some sort of artificial feeling of character. Like, it doesn't feel like somebody writing for the 10th Doctor and Donna. It feels like someone trying to emulate the 10th Doctor and Donna. Now, David Tennant does a fantastic job here at being a narrator. I love how he tries to emulate Catherine Tate's performance, and how he basically gives all these characters different personality. It's not just him simply reading the book. He actually tries giving these characters personalities and their own way of speaking, which is very nice. But in terms of the dialogue and in terms of what our characters actually do, it is kind of uninteresting, as they basically find themselves in a war zone between the human race, who are fighting this military organization of humans that are fighting a race of centaurs. For those of you who don't know, centaurs are half human, half horses. They have the lower body half of a horse, but then kind of like goes into the torso of a human being, and they have a human top half. That's the resemblance of them on the cover here, and that premise is enough. Is basically sets up this story as a military thriller, a military war story. And when you have war stories, the main focus of the narratives should be about our characters and how war affects them. And we do get some nice little characters here and there, but none of them get too much development to become that interesting, which is a crying shame because this is 2.5 hours long. But despite us spending a lot of time with these characters and a lot of time with Donna having an interaction with them as the Doctor essentially gets captured earlier on, but not before getting captured by the humans themselves, and the Doctor and Donna basically they go undercover as like these high officers. We get a reference to Star Trek where the Doctor goes by Dr. McCoy and he calls Donna Captain Kirk. Donna's like, what are you on about? Why am I Kirk? Well, I'm going to forget that name. You should have just called me Captain Noble, because now I'm going to forget my name and then the cover's blown. Donna has a lot of those Donnery moments which you would expect. And if you might be watching my vlog series, you might be surprised to discover that despite, Catherine Tate playing this highly exaggerated character, there's not a lot of moments like that. Usually Donna is very calm and very socially acceptable, if that's one way of putting it. Sure, she has her light, silly, googly-eyed moments, but when things get down, when things start taking serious, she can be serious. She can be an adult. She is a woman, and not a girl companion. But here, it does kind of feel like what people expected from Catherine Tate's performance, as Donna, in every situation, plays up to this personality where she's criticising people for saying certain remarks about the way she looks or how they think, and she just doesn't come off interesting in this story, which is a crying shame. Whether that's due to the lack of Catherine Tate, maybe I'm starting to believe that the main reason why Donna Noble works so well is that Catherine Tate's performance just absolutely nails out the park. And I think this story is a great example of when Catherine Tate isn't involved with Donna's personality, that isn't involved in Donna's characterization. People are just, writers are just led to what they think Catherine Tate would do, what they think Donna Noble would do. And so this assumption of Donna makes it into this story, and it really doesn't work. Nothing about this story says anything about Donna. Nothing really comes of her personality and what she learns throughout the narrative. She does make a few friends along the way. She first meets up with this sort of general character who kind of gets this suspicious feeling that she's not who she appears to be. She also, for a short moment, befriends a journalist, a war journalist, who quickly outs her as somebody who is not part of the military force and is using a false identity. And Donna seems to trust him for a small moment before he just outright betrays her to the authorities, basically showing that this world is a dark place where everybody is for themselves. But there is a scene in which there is a battle going out, for you see, not only are the humans have to fight these alien creatures, but they've also been turned, humans are also being turned into giant bug-like creatures, and nobody seems to understand why. Nobody most people seem to be turning into these bug creatures. Nobody understands why. Earlier on in the story, Donna gets hurt. She collapses and her ankle gets swollen, and somebody's been given her this pill, which is a painkiller that will heal injuries. And so she's taken one, and she goes on to this adventure with the people, and the aliens attack, and she finds this unconscious soldier, this woman who she's kind of had a small interaction at this point in the story, and she risks her life. She puts everything down the line to try and move this woman into safety before they get captured, and becomes cellmates with this woman who thanks Donna for saving her despite her being unconscious, and she basically becomes loyal to Donna. Now this friendship seems to be going somewhere, and has some really nice interactions with Donna and this character. However, despite the fact that this story is 2.5 hours long, they don't spend enough time in characters here for us to feel sorry, to feel sympathetic, when it turns out that she is also infected with this disease, which is turning people into bug-like creatures. And so, on the other side, we have the Doctor trying to befriend the centaur, a centaur individual. It turns out that the centaurs are a lot more kinder than what the humans imagined them to be. The centaurs actually treat prisoners of war with respect, unlike what they proclaim that the humans have been doing to their centaur prisoners. And the Doctor is kind of trying to convince them that he's not human, he's not a part of them, and he wants to break this truce between these people, that he wants to start peace between these two races. But these alien bug things are basically overwhelming this planet, and it seems like this third race of bug-like creatures are basically taken into the narrative, and is basically trying to also set these people up whilst also benefiting from their pain and suffering. You might realise that this type of storyline is something that Doctor Who used to do back in the 70s, specifically in the Third Doctor era. The story of the stories I like to call the ambassador stories, in which you have two warring factors against each other, and usually the plot line revolves around one or two characters from each party, or a third party that's trying to get them to war with each other, and it's up to the Doctor and their companions to try and solve the issues, trying to unravel the conspiracies and fix them. So in this regard, this story feels very 70s, very John Pertwee-ness, but it's a type of storyline you've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to have an idea of what you want to say with it, and you've got to have this respect for the material and this respect for this kind of status quo, and know when to change it up and mix it up. Here, there's nothing like that. This seems like any other kind of ambassador storyline like this. It feels you can easily put this away in terms of that kind of stories, if you like these kind of stories, and you could have easily forgotten about this narrative. I know I'm talking about I'm really criticising this story, but it's just not that interesting. When later on it's revealed that one of the human military leaders is actually the queen of this bug-like race, and it turns out that her race actually turns people, human beings, into bugs via these capsules, which she's told all these soldiers are pain relievers and fix injuries. And so the soldiers who have taken this pill the most quickly start turning into these bug creatures, and Donna, who has taken one, has the feeling that this creature is coming for them. And the idea here is interesting. You know, the human leader turns out to be the leader of this bug-like race. And David Tennant gives her this, I'm going to say Yorkshire voice, this Yorkshire accent. And David Tennant, like you forget, but it's David Tennant playing this role. But the twist comes way too late in a 2.5-hour story. And when the doctor comes in and discovers this and discovers what's happening, it's literally like 10 minutes left of the story. As the doctor quickly just comes in, is basically just like, I'm going to stop you. And this creature's just like, what are you going to do with me, mortals? Donna's friend, who's now turned into a bug, Donna tries to reason with her. It's like, you were my friend once. You were this human being, and now you've been turned into this bug creature. But if there's any sense of you that's human, please help us. And so this bug then basically betrays the queen and bites the head right off. And the story has this wrap up that the humans and the centaurs are now broken with peace. And the doctor basically explains that these are unintelligent creatures without a queen to lead them, without an intelligent leader. They're basically just normal animals. So just keep away from them. Don't bother them. They won't bother you. Just mind your own business and enjoy the peace for a moment as the Doctor and Donna head back into the TARDIS, where Donna wants a relaxing bath after the muddy adventure in the mud in a war-torn planet. So anyway, that's Pest Control. It's not very good. It's really weak. There's nothing really to chew on to. It feels like Peter Algales is basically doing his best to give us just the bare bones of a narrative. It seems this is a story which follows a specific status quo of Doctor Who, one that isn't as big as its more popular successors, like the Bust formula and the pure historicals. But it is nice to see it getting played out. But sadly, there's just nothing here that shows why this format works. It's really dull. It's really uninteresting. The story doesn't really capture the essence of the 10th Doctor and Donna. And despite David Tennant basically giving it his all, I would even go as far to say as this is David Tennant doing one of his best. Actually, I won't say it's his best performance in Doctor Who, but it's you can clearly see he's trying his best given all these different characters. He is basically every character in this story, and as well as being his incarnation of the Doctor. But the script, the audiobook gives him nothing to work with. And so, apart from David Tennant's just pure charisma, I would highly recommend you skip the story. If you are, however, I do want to say, if you have listened to this story and you are a fan of this story and you've got issues with my opinions on this, please comment down below your opinions. I really want to hear nice things about this story, if you have anything about this story, and I want to be convinced that this is a good story. So please, if you're a fan of the story and you think that I'm completely wrong, let me know. I am fascinated to hear other people's opinion. But for the moment, it did something. It didn't do really much for me. So there you go. That's my that's my review. That's my vlog of Pest Control. So join me next time where we head back to the Torchwood team in a story I actually haven't watched before, so I can't tell you anything about it. So join me next time for, I believe it's called From Out of the Rain. I could be wrong. I think it's like Out of the Rain. So join me next time for that, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!